بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم وإذا سألك عبادي عني فإني قريب أجيب دعوة الداع إذا دعان فليستجيبوا لي وليؤمنوا بي لعلهم يرشدون أحل لكم ليلة الصيام الرفث إلى نسائكم هن لباس لكم وأنتم لباس لهن علم الله أنكم كنتم تختانون أنفسكم فتاب عليكم وعفى عنكم فالآن باشروهن وابتغوا ما كتب الله لكم وكلوا واشربوا حتى يتبين لكم الخيط الأبيض من الخيط الأسود من الفجر ثم أتموا الصيام إلى الليل ولا تباشروهن وأنتم عاكفون في المساجد تلك حدود الله فلا تقربوها كذلك يبين الله آياته للناس لعلهم يتقون.
الحمد لله وصلى الله وسلم وبارك على نبينا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين. In the name of Allah, the most gracious and the most merciful, may the peace and blessings of Almighty Allah continue to be on the last of His messengers and the seed of His prophets, our leader Muhammad ibn Abdullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. May the peace and blessings be extended to cover all members of His household as well as all of His companions, whoever follows their footsteps until the day of resurrection. Ameen. Tafsir al-Quran al-Kareem, by the grace of Almighty Allah, this is going to be another sitting of interpreting, explaining, commenting on the meanings of the words of Almighty Allah. Yesterday we were on verse number 186. We took part of this verse, but we were unable to complete it because of the time constraint. And inshallah ta'ala, that same verse will be the starting point of today's tafsir. Almighty Allah make it easy for us. In this verse, Almighty Allah says, وَإِذَا سَأَلَكَ عِبَادِي عَنِّي فَإِنِّي قَرِيبٌ أُجِيبُ دَعْوَةَ الدَّاعِ إِذَا دَعَانِ فَلْيَسْتَجِيبُوا لِي وَلْيُؤْمِنُوا بِي لَعَلَّهُمْ يَرْشُدُونَ. فَإِنِّي قَرِيبٌ. If they ask you, O Prophet sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, how close, how near or far is our God, Almighty Allah? Tell them, I am very close to them. But as we said yesterday in another verse of Al-Quran al-Kareem, he described it further by saying, وَنَحْنُ أَقْرَبُ إِلَيْهِ مِنْ حَبْلِ الْوَرِيدِ. We are closer to a man or a woman calling on us. That is the statement of Almighty Allah. مِنْ حَبْلِ الْوَرِيدِ. Closer to him or her than even his or her jugular vein. Nothing can be closer than that. Now we need to explain something so that we get correct understanding and we comprehend well the meaning of the words of Almighty Allah. If Almighty Allah says He is close, in fact, is the closest to us, does that imply physical closeness? The answer is no. Closeness in this context does not mean that Allah is present physically in every place. That is a wrong notion, if that is the notion you have. Because He has clearly stated it in His book, in the Quran al-Karim, and in many hadith of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, that where is Almighty Allah is over the heavens, the 7 heavens. Ar-Rahmanu ala al-Arsh istawa. In another verse, A'amintum man fis sama. That God that is in Sama. Sama means what is above us, even what is even higher than the 7 heavens. That is where Al-Arshu, the seat of Almighty Allah, where it is. So we need to have this understanding so that we don't take the meaning of the word of Almighty Allah to mean something different from what He intended. He is close, God is the closest to us, but that does not imply physical closeness. But rather, He is close to us with His knowledge. Nothing is far from Him. He's close to us with His hearing. He hears everything. He knows everything about us. So the sound belief we must have as Muslims in relation to Almighty Allah is to believe in the entirety of His words, not taking one and rejecting another. In many verses of the Quran and Kareem, many hadith of the Prophet, He told us clearly where Allah is physically. But despite being there physically, He is closest to us with His knowledge. Wherever you may be, know that Allah is very close to you, watching, hearing, seeing you, and knowing everything about you. So this is what we need to explain about the word Qareeb and close. Meaning He is close to us with His knowledge, with His ability to know, to see, to hear everything about us. And this will also take us back to the earlier verse 185. There is another attribute of Almighty Allah. Please let us take note of this. It is part and parcel of our belief. In fact, it is so fundamental in our faith that you should know with what you should qualify Almighty Allah. You should know what kind of attributes, what kind of qualities you can use to describe Almighty Allah. It's part and parcel of our faith. If He says He's close to us, understand that closeness and do not transgress the limit. The verse before also said, Yuridullah. That's another attribute of Almighty Allah. Allah wants, Allah wishes. It's part of what we should know as part of His attributes. That He wishes. And whatever He wishes will come to pass. And Iran, Yuridullah. In some other ways, it will say Yasha. They look alike, but they are different in meaning. Irada, meaning whatever Allah wants and it is possible. Mashi'a, inna Allah yaf'alu ma yurid. Whenever Allah says, I do whatever I wish, whatever I want. This is the analysis according to the Muslim scholars. Literally in the Arabic language, the word yuridu, when we are to interpret it into the English language, we couldn't find another word than to say He wants, He wishes. And if we have to interpret the word Yasha, and over in the Quran al-Karim, in one verse, Inna Allah yaf'alu ma yurid. In another, Inna Allah yaf'alu ma yasha. Literally, they will sound as well as say. But when you look at it critically with the knowledge of Islam, you will discover the difference. The difference between you read Allah want, that want here will always apply to what is beloved to him, what is positive. But it is not everything, that is the point. Not everything that is on earth, not everything that exists is beloved to Almighty Allah. But He wishes that it should exist. Otherwise, it won't. And this is the difference. Anything in existence cannot be if Allah had not wished it to be. But that doesn't mean that everything that exists is beloved, is liked to Almighty Allah. And that is why you will see a lot of things that are going against His directives. But yet, if He had not wished it to exist, it will never exist. So this is the difference between Yaf'alu ma yurid. It's an attribute of Almighty Allah. Yaf'alu ma yasha is equally an attribute of Almighty Allah. But the two are different in the sense that as Muslims we must believe that nothing can exist except if Allah wishes it to exist. But that does not necessarily mean that if anything exists, then Allah likes it. He may allow some things to happen. He may allow some things to exist for a reason best known to Him. But He has told us clearly what and what are beloved to Him. Let me give you a clear example. In this world, we have those people who believe in Allah, and we have those who disbelieve in Allah. Is it beloved to Almighty Allah for people to be disobedient to Him? The answer is no. So irada does not apply here, but yasha'u mashi'a will apply. It is the wish of Almighty Allah that we should have those who believe in Him and those who do not believe in Him. Part of the wisdom that we know, that He let us know, He made us know, in allowing that to happen, is for you to appreciate the consequence of both. It is for you to now appreciate the consequence of both believing in Him or disbelieving in Him. That if you believe in Him, this is the reward, this is the outcome, this is the result. But if you choose not to believe in Him, if you choose to be disobedient to Him, it also has a dire consequence. And that is part of the wisdom of Almighty Allah. So the bottom line here is, please let us know that it is part and parcel of our faith to know what and what qualities, attributes you can use even in describing Almighty Allah. You cannot use what He has not chosen for Himself. In fact, we as ordinary creatures of Almighty Allah, we will resist any attempt to give us a name that we don't want, isn't it? So it's not to anybody to say, this is the name I like to be calling you. I must consent to that name. And you must consent to that name or attribute. Otherwise, you will fight it. If that is the case for the creatures of Almighty Allah, how come you think you can name Almighty Allah with any name? You can call Him, you can describe Him in any way? No, it is very good. And as I said, it is very fundamental part of our faith. This is what is called Tawheedullahi bi asma'ihi wa sifatihi. Believing in the oneness of Almighty Allah, even in His names and attributes. Know that there are names, there are attributes that are specific, that are exclusive for Him, and they cannot be used for any other creature. And at the same time, in the other way, you cannot just choose on your own to name Him, to describe Him, to give Him any attribute if He has not chosen that for Himself. And logically, as I've said, if I, as a very weak creature of Almighty Allah, will not allow that to happen to me, you will not allow that for yourself. How come do you think that should be acceptable to Almighty Allah? So this is not, it's not something that we hear about it very often. But since we have the opportunity, we must let you know. It's part and parcel. In fact, it's very fundamental in our faith to know what are the attributes of Almighty Allah and use those attributes and names only to beg Him, to ask Him, and do not invent or any other name. And that is why I will draw your attention by way of giving examples. Do you know it is wrong to describe Almighty Allah as being a father? Because He clearly said He is not a father to anyone. Lam yalid wa lam yulad. This is what we are saying. It's very, very fundamental. You may think it is out of respect to describe someone as a father, but He doesn't want Himself to be described that way. And we must desist from so doing. That is just by giving an example, for you to know the importance of this aspect of our faith. Allah has names chosen for Himself. He has attributes He has chosen for Himself, and those are the names and attributes that must be exclusively used for Him. So we have two here now, Yuriyullah. The other one is Qareeb. If He says I'm close, please know the meaning of His closeness and do not transgress the limit. Do not transgress the limit. SubhanAllah, on one occasion, somebody was arguing unnecessarily and unreasonably. How can you say Allah is not everywhere? Allah is everywhere. Then a question came to him and he couldn't answer. Then he was asked, I've just come out of the toilet. Will you think of it to say that when you were in that toilet, Allah physically was present in the toilet? This is what ulama scholars are drawing your attention to. The knowledge of Almighty Allah covers everything, including the inner part of that toilet, but it's not there physically. That is why He said it clearly. Here it is, Ar-Rahmanu al-Arsh. And for us to even further appreciate how fundamental, how important this aspect of our faith is. In the lifetime of the Prophet Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, there was an instance of freeing a slave. You know, there are certain things, if you commit them, they are mistakes, they are no-go areas. But if you commit any of them to bail yourself out of the consequence, you have what we call kafara, to expiate for that. The very popular kafara is to set free a slave. If you do this, you shouldn't do it, but if you mistakenly do it or ignorantly do it, then find a slave and set him or her free for the sake of Almighty Allah. And that is another thing we must be proud of. Islam was the first religion to discourage slavery and enslaving fellow human beings. Islam was the first religion to condemn and outlaw it. And even on many occasions, we encourage us. You committed this sin, the way you can get out of the consequences to look at, go find a slave and set him or her free in the name of Almighty Allah. Now, somebody committed one of those errors and mistakes and approached the Prophet ﷺ that I am ready to free a slave. But in some circumstances, it's a condition that such a slave must be a believing slave, not just any slave. Liberate him to become, instead of becoming a servant of a fellow human being, to become what? A servant of Almighty Allah. That is the wisdom. If you are liberating someone, bringing him or her out of slavery, don't put him into another slavery, a bigger slavery. To be worshiping a fellow human being, that's even worse. So that's why it's a condition that if you are freeing a slave, he or she must be a believing slave. Now, the man came to the Prophet ﷺ and said, I have identified a particular slave, a female slave, but I am in doubt whether she is a believing slave, a believer, or a non-believer. Then the Prophet ﷺ ordered that she should be brought to him, the female slave to be freed. We will test, we will examine her to see whether she is or she is not a believer. Do you know the question put to her by the Prophet ﷺ? You will be surprised to know that. That question even a lot of Muslims are asked today, I'm afraid they may fail. It's a simple question, but if you don't know, you can fail. God forbid. When they brought that lady, the Prophet ﷺ asked her a very simple question. Aina Allah, where is God? If you are asked today, what will you say? It's everywhere. And that would be a great mistake. But Alhamdulillah, she was really a believing slave. Her answer on that day was that Allah is where He said He is. Where He said He is. Where did He say He is? He said, over the heaven, His Saman. So please, this will further underline what we were saying, that this is very important part of our faith. To know that Allah has certain names, Allah has certain attributes, we must understand them and we must use them only in calling on Him, in describing Him, and the rest of them. Qaribun ujibu da'watan da'i. I'm close and I answer whoever calls me. I hear whoever calls on me. With a condition, as we said yesterday, that He must call. Please make it a habit. It's a good habit to always call on Almighty Allah in whatever circumstance. Even if you don't need something for yourself, I've said it yesterday, you will find people around you who are in need. Pray for them to have what they are in need of. If you think you don't need anything, that is the worst scenario. Because some people will be deceiving themselves that actually he doesn't know what to ask for. From Almighty Allah, the Creator. Then let us assuming but not conceding, that you do not have anything to ask for. You have people around you. If you don't have people around you, Nigeria as a country is in need. Make dua for Nigeria to have peace and security. If you fail to do that, as we recited in hadith yesterday, Allah is angry. Man lam yas'alillaha yaghdab alayhi. Whoever does not find a way of asking Almighty Allah, then surely Allah is angry. فَلْيَسْتَجِيبُوا لِي. So these are the conditions if you want Allah to answer your prayers. If you want to call Him to answer Him, the first condition is you have to call Him. He will not persuade you that you must come and call me. You must know it as a duty that you have a God that you must call. The second one, فَلْيَسْتَجِيبُوا لِي. They are very easy and very, very fair and just. You want to call on Allah to answer you, have you also answered Him? This is the thing. You want Allah to answer you. How many times has He called you? Have you ever answered Him? When Adhan is being raised 5 times a day, that's one of the ways in which Allah calls you. Do you answer Him? That's a condition. If you want to what Almighty Allah to also answer you, He said, فَلْيَسْتَجِيبُوا لِي. Then you have to answer me. If I call you, if you hear that this is where Allah wants you to be, try to be there. If you are told He doesn't want you to be there, avoid being there. That is the only way you can answer Him. It does not need anything from you. Answering Almighty Allah doesn't mean you have something to give Him, no. Answering Him means being obedience to Him. Whatever you hear that He says, then say, oh, Alhamdulillah. Since Allah has said, this is what I want. فَلْيَسْتَجِيبُوا لِي وَلْيُؤْمِنُوا بِي. And you should believe in me. That's another condition. If you want to call Almighty Allah, then you must be a believer in Him. وَلْيُؤْمِنُوا بِي. You must be a believer in Almighty Allah if you want to call Him and you want Him to answer. If you fulfill all these conditions, then surely. Allah in the word of Almighty Allah means surely. It is in the context of human beings that Allah will mean maybe. But Allah, in relation to Almighty Allah, is certainty. If you have done all what has been mentioned here in this verse, you will be guided surely. You want to be guided? Then please follow the instructions of Almighty Allah. And some of those instructions, very, very fundamental, are mentioned in this verse. Call on Him, answer His call, believe in Him truly. And if you have done this, surely you will be one of those that are rightly guided by Almighty Allah. So this is a verse that tells us a lot about one important aspect of our life, and that is making dua. Making supplication is an important part of our religion. To the extent that in the hadith of the Prophet, he described dua, supplicating to Almighty Allah, as a form of worship. قال النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم الدعاء هو العبادة. Dua, supplication in itself, is a way of worshiping Almighty Allah. And that is why let me repeat it. Even if you don't have anything to ask, by mere saying, Ya Allah, what are you doing? You are worshiping. Dua in itself is a form of worship. That is why you should always engage in dua. فَلْيَسْتَجِيبُوا لِي وَلْيُؤْمِنُوا. Now, from this very hadith of the Prophet ﷺ, we have an important lesson to them. The Prophet said that dua is ibadah. We all know what is ibadah. Ibadah means what has a rule to be followed. And that is why me and you now, we cannot stand up at 5 minutes to 6 and observe Maghrib prayer. Who stops us? Are we not strong enough to do? Because the rule says it is not yet time. And even when it is time for Maghrib, we cannot observe 4 rakah. We cannot do 2. We must do exactly how many? 3. Why? Because that is what the rule says we must do. That is ibadah for me. Last month, we were not fasting, obligatory fasting. Why? Because Allah did not ask us to do at that time. So this is what is called ibadah. Now let us now try to apply this principle to what has been described as a form of ibadah, which is what? Dua. Please know that you cannot just manufacture dua. You cannot just invent ways, new ways of making dua. It's not allowed. Because if you are asked why, tell them because the Prophet said, and dua itself is a form of ibadah. The same way that I cannot invent a new way of praying, a new way of fasting, a new way of performing pilgrimage, I have to follow the rules. The same way I have to follow the rules even if I'm making dua. And this will explain part of what we drew our attentions to yesterday. That what we witnessed today of people unnecessarily emulating, imitating what they see in other faiths, in dua, in supplication, is wrong. Because dua in our own religion is a way of worshipping Almighty Allah. Allah tells you dua in Islam must be quiet, must be silent. You don't raise your voices, you don't shout because you want to call on Almighty Allah. Because as said in that hadith, He is neither a dumb nor a deaf God. He's an all-knowing, all-hearing God. So please let us learn, as I mentioned yesterday, there are ethics, there are rules, there are etiquette of dua. We've mentioned some yesterday. Maybe we add one or two more before we close to this session of Tafsir. One of the important ethics and rules of dua is that you know that you must keep yourself within the limit allowed in dua. You must not transgress the limit, even when you are calling on Almighty Allah. How do you transgress the limit? Because Allah said in the verse of Al-Quran al-Kareem, إِنَّهُ لَا يُحِبُّ الْمُعْتَدِينَ ادعوا ربكم تضرعا وخفية إنه لا يحب المعتدين. Call on Almighty Allah your God is readily available to answer your call. But while so doing, follow the rules. What are the rules? Tadarru'an, in humility, humble yourself. Don't pray to Almighty Allah arrogant. Who are you? He can do and undo, and you have nothing to do for that. You have no call to charge Almighty Allah. If He chooses to give you, He gives you. If He chooses to deny you, He denies you. And that will be it. So please, we have to learn how to humble ourselves in every respect while calling on Almighty Allah. It amounts to arrogance somehow for somebody to be watching the television and still calling on Almighty Allah. It amounts to arrogance. You are not humbling yourself enough. You have to show that humility in you that I am in need of your intervention, my God. He needs to see that in you. Then the second rule in the same verse, don't shout. He said, I'm not a deaf God, I'm not a dumb God. You don't need to shout before I hear your call. Then the third one is what we are adding today. This was we said it yesterday. The third one in this verse is إِنَّهُ لَا يُحِبُّ الْمُعْتَدِينَ. Allah does not like whoever is transgressing the limit, crossing the boundary, even in. How can you cross the boundary in? How can you transgress the limit? In many ways. Allah has what He has told us clearly that this is the sunnah, this is how I have planned for you to live. It's not that to live otherwise is beyond my power. But I have a program for you as my creators. This is how you should live. A good example is if you want to get children, get married. If anybody should say, because Allah is ever powerful to do anything, please bless me with children without getting married. That's transgression. You cannot test the power of Almighty Allah. So we have to be mindful of even what you say. Whatever Allah says will never be given to a man or a woman. You mustn't ask for it. If you do, you are transgressing the limit. And that is why He said, إِنَّهُ لَا يُحِبُّ الْمُعْتَدِينَ. Scholars will give many examples that if somebody should say, oh Allah, please allow me to live until the day of resurrection, not to die. Because we are all born, we are powerful, we can do everything. He said he won't do that. Why asking him? He said every living creature must have a time of the beginning of life, and that life must actually come to an end at a point. So please, one way of transgressing the limit is by asking Almighty Allah to give you what He has said He won't give any man or woman. It's wrong for you to do. One of the ways of transgressing the limit is for you to be setting unnecessary beatings to Almighty Allah. Some people will say, Allah, I want a car within 6 months. If you can't give me within 6 months, I don't need it again. Have you ever had some crazy people praying that way? They have. Oh Allah, I want so days. And if you can't give me, then you can hold it. You cannot force him to do. It's part of ways of transgressing the limit. Please don't do that. And I will give you an example, maybe we'll close on that one. In the time of the Prophet, one of the companions of the Prophet overheard his own child making dua to Almighty Allah. What was the child saying? He was asking Almighty Allah to let him be among the dwellers of paradise. That's beautiful. That's Allah said so people will be in paradise. It's not something that is unattainable, so you can ask for that. But he didn't stop there. He transgressed the limit. Then he started saying that the kind of room that I want in paradise must measure so in length and so in breadth, must be of so height, must have that kind of a window, and the door must look like this. And the father cried. this is exactly what we were warned against by the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. That certainly some people will be transgressing the rules, even when they make dua. So this is part of what we should know as rules, ethics, and etiquettes of dua. That please operate even in your prayer within the limit set by Almighty Allah and never cross that limit. Almighty Allah once again answer all of our prayers and grant all our requests. وصلى الله وسلم وبارك على نبينا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين. Because we didn't start early enough today. That is why we added some few minutes. We still entertain questions if there are questions before we formally close the Tafsir session for today. Alhamdulillah. So the time is also, we've exhausted the time already. So there are no questions for today. So we thank Almighty Allah. Thank Him for His favor on us and ask Him for more. Almighty Allah continue to have His mercy, His favor upon all of us and all our families. We ask Him to further guide the leadership of this place, the leadership of our country, to what will be pleasing to Him and what will be of benefit to every Nigerian and every stakeholder in this institute. Allahumma inna nas'aluka min khayri kulli عاجله وآجله ما نعلم وما لم نعلم ونعوذ بك من الشر كله عاجله وآجله ما علمنا منه وما لم نعلم. اللهم إنا نسألك من كل خير سألك وعبدك ونبيك محمد صلى الله عليه وسلم ونعوذ بك من كل شر عاذ منه عبدك ونبيك محمد صلى الله عليه وسلم. اللهم إنا نسألك الجنة